All right, if you're a back-end engineer, I need you to listen up. The very ground beneath your feet is shifting. All those skills that made you a rock star developer, they're not going away, but they're about to become just one small piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. So let's just dive right in. This is your direct roadmap to pivot to an AI engineer and be completely ready for the 2026 job market.
And let's start with a really hard truth, okay? Right now, most developers are scrambling to learn AI, but they're focusing on completely the wrong things. They're chasing these super complex model training techniques or learning concepts that are already outdated, and they are totally missing the huge paradigm shift that has already happened.
And look, the stakes here could not be higher. This isn't just about, staying relevant. It's about grabbing a massive opportunity. We're already seeing top-tier AI engineers pulling in salaries north of $400,000. Why? Because they get the new landscape. The demand is absolutely real, and the rewards are, well, they're huge. So what is this big fundamental shift we're talking about? Well, as a back-end engineer, your entire universe is built on deterministic logic, right? If A happens, then B must follow. It's clean, it's predictable, it's reliable. But this new world of AI, it runs on something called probabilistic intelligence. You give it an input, and you get a likely, but not a guaranteed output. And that one little difference, it changes absolutely everything. So that brings us to part one, this whole new engineering paradigm. We've got to break down exactly why your hard-won logic skills, your architecture skills, which are still super valuable, by the way, are just no longer enough on their own. Just look at how your job is changing. The old way, even in the early days of AI, was all about being deep in the weeds, training models from scratch, writing that predictable code. The new way? It's so much more about strategy and integration. Think of it this way. You're not building the brain anymore. You're building the entire system that tells the brain what to do. And this right here, this is the core idea. Let that sink in for a second. You are no longer the one writing every single line of if-then logic. Instead, you're building these robust systems that harness a powerful, pre-existing, and yes, sometimes unpredictable intelligence. Your job is now one of orchestration, not just creation. And this is where that whole probabilistic thing just shatters our old ways of doing things. I mean, seriously, how do you write a unit test for something that might not give you the same answer twice? How do you debug a system that kind of thinks for itself? How do you scale an application when every single API call is unique? These are the new core engineering challenges you're going to face.
So, with all those new challenges in mind, let's get into the first essential skill set. Before you can build any of this stuff, you have to master the tools. And in this new world, that means mastering the APIs of these giant foundation models. You wouldn't use a screwdriver to hammer a nail, right? It's the exact same thing with these large language models. A modern AI engineer knows that, hey, OpenAI's models are fantastic at reasoning, but Anthropic's models are absolute masters of structured output. Knowing which tool to pick for which job is a fundamental, totally non-negotiable skill. And working with these models means you have to get your hands dirty with their APIs. And this isn't just about, sending a simple request. It's about understanding how to stream responses for a snappy UI, how to control the model's creativity with a little knob called temperature, and how to use really powerful features like function calling to let the model use other tools and data sources. Okay, let's talk about prompting for a second, because this is probably the single most misunderstood skill in all of AI. Forget this idea of just typing a question into a chat box. For an engineer, prompting is a rigorous discipline. You are, and I mean this literally, engineering the behavior of the AI with your words. To get reliable production quality results, you need structure. You can't just wing it. You have to tell the model what its role is, give it crystal clear constraints, show it a few examples of exactly what you want, and, this is crucial, encourage it to think step by step with a technique called chain of thought. This is how you turn a creative toy into a predictable engineering component. So once you've really mastered those single interactions with a model, the next step is to start building complex systems that use these models like Lego bricks. And this is where your back-end skills really start to shine again, just in a whole new context. So a foundation model knows a ton about the public world, right? But it knows nothing about your private world. The bridge for that is a technique called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. It is the critical pattern for securely giving a model access to your company's private docs, your user data, all the stuff it needs to give actually relevant contextual answers. So at a really high level, the process is pretty straightforward.
You take your documents, you convert them into these numerical representations, we call them embeddings, and you store them. Then when a user asks a question, you search for the most relevant chunks of text and you just feed them to the model along with the question. It's simple in concept, but it's really complex in execution. Because, as always, the devil is in the details. Getting RAG to work well in a real production system is a serious engineering challenge. I mean, how do you split your documents up? How do you handle a user's really vague question? How do you re-rank all the search results to find the absolute best one? Solving these problems is what separates a cool demo from a real product. Now, as your systems get bigger, you'll find yourself using two main patterns. The first one is chains, which are kind of like a factory assembly line. You link together these predefined steps. First, summarize a document, then extract names, then validate them. The other pattern is agents, and these are way more dynamic. You give the AI a goal and a toolbox, like a search API or a calculator, and it acts as a reasoning engine, deciding for itself which tools to use and in what order. This is where things get really, really powerful. All right, now for the part that should honestly terrify and excite every single backend engineer out there, shipping this stuff. How in the world do you ensure quality and reliability when your core component is fundamentally unpredictable? Let's just be blunt about it. The entire testing paradigm you have built your career on, it's not the whole story anymore. That classic red-green refactor cycle and your simple assertions, they are going to fail you in this world of probabilistic outputs. And this slide just contrasts it perfectly. In your traditional code, you assert for an exact value. It is binary. It either passes or it fails. In AI, you're not testing for equality, you're measuring quality. You create these evaluation sets to check if the response quality is above some acceptable threshold, like an 8 out of 10. So what are you actually measuring? Well, things like factual accuracy, whether the model is just making stuff up, we call that the hallucination rate, the relevance of the answer, and even if it matches your brand-specific tone. And you absolutely have to track cost, because these models can get really expensive at scale. This right here, this is your new dashboard for product quality. We've covered the entire tech stack, but this final skill is, you could argue, the most important one of all. And it's not about code. It's about culture. It's about mindset. This space is just moving way too fast for perfectionism. The winning strategy right now is a rapid, iterative loop. Build a minimum viable product, get it in front of real users, learn from what they do, and only then do you go back and optimize for performance and cost. Right now, execution speed is the ultimate competitive advantage. So there you have it. The roadmap from backend to AI engineer is actually pretty clear. It's a fundamental shift for sure, a shift from writing pure logic to orchestrating intelligence. The tools have never been easier to get your hands on, and the opportunity has never, ever been bigger. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build with it?